Thank you for choosing to view the devotion today. As 2020 is coming to a close, I find myself really looking forward to a better year in 2021. I imagine a lot of you are as well. I look back on this year as one of perpetual turmoil and frustration. There has been so much change thrust upon us, whether we like it or not. It goes without saying that the pandemic has been the most significant cause for much of the forced changes in our lives this year. A year ago, who would have thought that you would have a hard time buying toilet paper and cleaning products? Not me. That one change brought frustrations to millions of Americans. And that's just one of the things in our lives this year that have changed, been forced upon us. I could cite example after example of the things that have negatively impacted us, if not many of us, if not all of us this year. I'm ready to move on. I don't know about you, but I want to regain some sense of normalcy next year. As I was reading the Bible this morning for my daily devotions, I read Psalm 136. I've read this psalm many times over the years, but this morning it really caught my attention. This psalm is 26 verses long, and a phrase is repeated in each of the 26 verses. And that phrase is, "For his steadfast love endures forever." I'm not going to read the entire psalm, but I really would like you just to take a few minutes sometime today before you go to bed to read Psalm 136. It starts out in verse 1 with, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever." And it ends with, "Give thanks to the God of heaven, for his steadfast love endures forever." There are 24 verses in between the first and the last verse that list all sorts of things that we should give thanks to God for. Some you may not identify with, but some you will. I started thinking about this statement, "For his steadfast love endures forever." And steadfast made me think of unchanging. God's love for me is unchanging. It is steadfast. It stays the same. It doesn't depend on how I act or behave. It doesn't depend on anything on me. It's his love toward me, and it doesn't change. His love is meant for me, for you, and everyone else. There is no distinction. And then I thought, well, it's unchanging, but it endures forever. When something has endured, it is unaffected by the surrounding environment. Think about that a minute. God's love, the core of who he is toward each of us, is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. How we act as a result of our life struggles and the things that are thrust upon us that are out of our control will not change the way God views us and loves us. I know, some of you might be thinking, but you're basing this whole thought on one chapter in the whole Bible. So here is some supporting information and some other verses that I think back up what I've just said regarding God's unwavering and unchanging love for us. The phrase that we've been talking about, "For his steadfast love endures forever," is used 45 times in the English Standard Version of the Bible. And the shortened phrase of steadfast love is used 202 times in the English Standard Version. I'm going to read a few other verses that talk to the same idea of God's love being steadfast and lasting forever and unchanged, the character of God. In Malachi chapter 3, verse 6, it says, "For I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore you, O children of Jacob, are not consumed. For I, the Lord, do not change." And in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 9, it says, "Know therefore that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God who keeps his covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations." And then in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, it says, "Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever." Remember that Jesus is God's Son in the flesh. If Jesus is God, then this statement is true for God the Father as well. And that statement is, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And in Exodus chapter 34, verses 5 through 7, it says, "The Lord descended in a cloud and stood with them there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, 'The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression of sin.'" Excuse me. And in Jeremiah chapter 29, verses 11 through 13, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord." If God's love is unchanging and steadfast, and it endures all the circumstances around us, then part of his love is that he has plans for us, not for evil, but to give us a future and a hope. You know, in closing, I was reminded this morning while prepping this devotion that when life circumstances start to get to me and my attitude starts going south, I need to intentionally start thinking of all of the things that I have to be thankful to God for. They are all around me. I just need to expend a little effort to notice them and then to tell God thanks. The junk in my life doesn't disappear when I do that, but my attitude and reaction to the junk will certainly improve. Remember to read Psalm 136. It's a great reminder and a listing of things to thank God for. Have a blessed day.